If you're just starting out in the game of filmmaking, photography, and content creation, and you just happen to stumble on the best video that you'll probably ever see. Maybe not the best video, but this video is going to offer you a ton of added value. Now, what does that mean to me? What that means to me is that I'm going to share some of the experience that I've gotten here over the last few years. The first part of that is, don't go out and buy a fancy brand new camera. It's just not going to serve you well right now because you don't know enough to be able to get out there and actually use the camera. What I'm going to say is begin to work on things like exposure, begin to work on things like composition, begin to work on things like light, shade, shadow. Begin to understand those things because that's going to come into play. Those are going to be the things that you end up spending so much time on trying to get perfect for some image that inspired you to even want to do this thing that you'll have time to be able to master those on a camera that you have to really learn. Now, what I will say is this. Start looking at things like light stands. And I don't mean like 1 or 2 light stands. I mean, 5, 6, 7, 8 light stands. Why light stands, JT? Well, imagine that you begin to film something and you need to hang something up, but you don't have anywhere to hang it. Then you're trying to put something on the wall, tape it to the wall, or have somebody to stand up and hold it for you. That's just not gonna make you productive. So I'm gonna tell you, you need light stands, you need diffusion, you need black material. They can be flags, they can be black sheets, it can be black felt, it can be blackout curtains, but you need some black material. Why do you need black material? That's going to help you to be able to control the light. That's going to be able to help you to add more shadow. That's going to be able to help you to block off light that you don't want. See, a lot of these different images that you see that get you motivated and hyped to want to recreate, you've got to be able to go in and control these different environments. And so one of the ways you can do that is by using diffusion and flags. Flags can begin to get expensive because they come with other things, but black sheets and blackout curtains aren't very expensive. But even if you have that, you've got to have stands to put them up on. So now that brings me to my third thing. What do you need in order to be able to use these stands, this diffusion, and these black flags? You need clamps. The flags are not going to stay up by themselves. The diffusion is not going to stay up by themselves. You need clamps. There's several different types of clamps, the little cheap clamps that you can get on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description so that you can be able to see some of these, but you need to get a ton of those clamps because there's nothing like having a black sheet or curtain going from one end of a boom arm to the other end of a boom arm and then it's lagging down in the middle. You're going to need some clamps. The clamps are going to allow you to be able to move around. It's going to allow you to be able to get something into a firm position so that it doesn't move. And so the more clamps you have, the better it's going to be. So you need diffusion. Diffusion is what you use in order to be able to change the light from a hard light over to a soft light. It's what allows you to be able to have, split toning where there's going to be shadow and light on one side, but there's no hard edge defined line. That allows you to have a more smooth transition from light to shadow. That's what diffusion is going to be. And then the more diffusion you have, the softer you can actually make that light. And it's going to all be personal preference, but if you have a client that says, man, that light looks really hard and bright, hey, you throw up some diffusion and you're good to go. But again, if you don't have a light stand and if you don't have clamps, then you don't have any way of being able to put this diffusion up to block the light. So going in a little bit more on the stands, you can get some basic stands, but they need to be heavy duty stands. You can't get these little cheap stands that you can literally bend with your hands or bend over your knee. You've got to get something that, I'm gonna say some stainless steel stands, or some stands that have like that black matte finish. They need to be strong enough to be able to support using a boom arm where you can put a knuckle on it, where you can be able to have arm extensions. Because if you're trying to add some diffusion but you don't want to get your stand in frame, because it's so close, you gotta have something that will extend that diffusion out, or extend that black material, or extend that black flag out. And so you need to be able to have something like that where you can be able to move around, you can put a light in front of it and be able to make some adjustments. And so I'll have some links in the description that will show you some of these, and you're probably seeing some of them pop up on the screen now. But those are some different attachments that you need for your light stands. You can also get a C-stand. The C-stand is going to probably be one of your more versatile stands as far as being able to have both light and heavy material. You can use your C-stand to put diffusion, to put bounce boards, to also be able to hang lights and cameras and microphones or whatever else you need on it, because it allows you to put heavy things in the air. You know, you put a sandbag on top of it, on top of the tallest leg, and then you're good to go, you know, and it'll just stay there. You can also be able to have your C-stand over somewhere else and have that arm extended out. And as long as you have your C-stand set up properly, you'll be good to go. Microphone stands. That's another stand that you'll need, because if you get a boom mic, you'll need to be able to boom that microphone over. So you'll need a stand that's strong enough to be able to support it, okay? Because if you're doing this thing on your own, you still want to be able to have great audio. Clamps. You have your regular hand clamps, you've got your C clamps, you also have your duckbill clamps, and these things are going to be good for, once again, being able to help you with some of your bounce boards, which can be just a foam board or an insulation board. But these are things that you're going to need because they help you when you don't have enough light. You can be able to use those to bounce and aim and angle light onto your subject or in an area where you're trying to just show more light. Then there are clamps that you can be able to put on the top of your stands that will also have the little clamp head on the end, and you can be able to put a board up underneath that, or you can be able to use it to clamp in a 5-in-1 reflector. Your 5-in-1 reflectors will also have a negative field side, it'll have a diffusion side, and it'll also have bounce board side. It'll also have a white color reflector, and it'll also have a tungsten color reflector. So the 5-in-1 reflectors will help you to get not only a bounce board, diffusion, and negative field, but it'll also help you with being able to bounce light, whether it be a daylight bounce or a tungsten light bounce, which, you know, you'll get more into that. That's kind of down the line, but that should also be included in your things to purchase right now. So yeah, the stands, like I said, those stands are so critical. It's unreal. It's nothing like showing up on set and, you know, you've got some lights or you've got some diffusion, but you've only bought 3 or 4 stands, and it's like, man, I've got a key light here, I've got a backlight over here, and I've got a bounce board over here, and now I'm out of stands. There's no feeling that's worse in the world, because you begin to look around like, okay, where can I prop something up? So not only does it not look professional, but it also is very ineffective, and it doesn't give you the mobility nor the freedom to be able to move around your set the way that you need to. Now, that brings me to my next item, which is rollers. Add some rollers. You know, for every stand you don't have to have rollers, but for your C stands, you want to have a roller. For your stands where you're going to have big lights, you probably want to have a roller. If you want to be able to quickly and easily move around diffusion, it makes it very easy for you to move things around. And in this game, time is money, money is time. And so you want to make sure that you're not having to pick things up and be careful and cautious all the time while you're on set, because it makes you less efficient. Okay, now I'm telling you these things because when I first started, these were not the things that were put out there that you really needed to have as a beginner. These were things that I just kind of figured out, man, this just made my life so much easier. And also, these are things that I figured out that, you know what, people don't really push these things. This is some stuff that is often just left in the gray area of instruction when they're trying to sell products. You know, what good does it do you to have a $10,000 camera, but you don't have anything to block off the light coming in from the window? You don't have anything to soften the light that comes in from the window. So that result that you're enjoying or that you like to see is not going to be the same, because the shot is different, the angle is different, and the light that's coming in is just different. They say, well, man, I can just do natural light. Okay, that's fine, but you still need to be able to control it, because 30 minutes after you start shooting, that natural light is going to move, and so you need to be able to move with it. So these are some of the things that, they often go unspoken, they go unmentioned, because, it's always about the gear. And so I'm going to help you to make some good decisions on the gear you should be looking at, and not so much as a gear that'll just be exciting to play with. Because ultimately, those customers, they don't really care about how fancy your gear is. Yeah, it might look fancy, but they want what's going to be on the other side, and that is your creation. Now, the next thing I'm going to jump over into is audio. Look, if you're just starting out with your cell phone, guess what? You've got a pretty decent mic already. The mic that's on the iPhone is great. The mic that's on the Android is great. There are also some $5, $6, $7 options that you can get for a wireless lapel mic for both of these. And with the new AI tools that you get in most editing softwares, you can eliminate any background noise and still be able to get a high quality professional studio sound. So the different mics that I would recommend, if you're going to be outside, you're going to be mobile, I'm definitely going to say go with a wireless lapel mic setup. There's also, being able to use your iPhone or your Android. There's usually a wireless Bluetooth mic setup that when you plug the transmitter into your phone, you can also be able to use the actual mic bud and clip it onto your shirt or underneath your shirt and be able to get great audio, especially when you take it back in post and do noise reduction on it. You're going to get a pretty clean sound. And it's going to be extremely budget friendly, because right now, what good does it do for you to have, $10,000 studio mic setup, but you've got a $5 image? So you've got your lapel mics, you've got your boom mics, you've got your USB mics, you've got your audio interface mics, and you've got your US audio interface mic setups, where you can be able to plug into the computer and also be able to control your inputs, as well as things like compression, condensing, mid-tones, high tones. You've got EQs built into them. But again, some of the editing software also has these capabilities. So you've got some learning curve that's going to be ahead of you, but you just don't have to run out and spend an arm and a leg, to be able to get to a certain level right now. There will be time for that. I would always say let the projects begin to dictate some of those needs, so that you can be able to transfer some of that cost over to your customers over the long term. And so with that being said, just always know this: people will watch a video that has great audio with bad video quality before they watch a video that has super good video quality but sounds like you're talking on a half muted telephone dispatch system. I mean, that's just the facts. You've got a 30-minute video. Nobody wants to sit there and listen to video that doesn't have a good audio quality, but they will watch a video that sounds good versus a video that only looks good. So now, I remember when I was first getting started, one of my mentors, somebody who I really look up to in this game, he said, man, you wouldn't believe it, but right now, lights and camera lenses are probably going to be some of your biggest investments, but go with lights first. You really can never have too much light. Think about it. You've already purchased the things that, well, now, since watching this video, you will have already purchased the things that you need in order to control the light. You will have enough diffusion to make your light quality good. You will already have enough negative fill and also black material to be able to control and shape the direction of your light and the intensity of your light and your shade and shadow. You'll have the accessories that you need to be able to move those things around to always be in control. You're also going to have the things that you need in order to give your video good audio quality. So now we just need to look at the actual images themselves. See, this is how you kind of get ahead of the game, because instead of having a camera and then learning how to use all of those things to add to your camera, you could just be able to plug and play any camera, because you'll have the things that you need in order to make sure that your images are good. Then you can take your cell phone, you can take your actual camera, and when you just put it in your hands, you've got your environment set up so that they can give you the looks that you want. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is lights. There's cheap lights, there's expensive lights. The lights that you really want to have at some point are going to be lights where you can control the color temperature. The main reason being is because when you want to motivate things that, when I say motivate, I'm going to say when you walk into a space, the idea is not going to be to create, a Joker movie environment. The idea is going to be able to create illumination that is going to allow you to have an ambient space feel that you can actually see, that you can replicate, and then also to be able to have light that you can use to make sure that your subject stands out from its background environments enough that everyone knows that that's the most important thing for focus. That's it. We're not going to overcomplicate it. We're going to keep it right there. And that's it. So if you've got a room that has one or two lamps, then okay, for every light source, just know that you'll need a second light source of your own. So the next thing we're going to talk about is lighting. Now, there are expensive lights and there's also cheap lights. You can use cheap lights and be able to come up with some out of sight shots, whether it be photography, whether it be videography, whether it just be for content creation. I think for beginners, one of the things that we don't think about is that lighting is kind of 2 to 3-fold, okay? Either you're doing a replication of natural lighting, which is where you can get your quote unquote cinematic scenes, or you're doing creative lighting. See, in natural lighting, we're trying to figure out a way to be able to recreate the light that you can see with your own 2 eyes, but also be able to control that light no matter what time of day it is and no matter what the actual environment is. In creative lighting, which is kind of what we see here, it doesn't have to make sense. There's not a lot of places on the planet where when you go outside, the light is going to be as blue as what you see in this super saturated blue light behind me. If you do hop on a spaceship and get out of there. But in a creative lighting scenario, it doesn't really matter. So that was one of the big things that I had to get used to. It's like, you know what? The guy that's doing this YouTube video that I'm watching, that's his creative lighting setup, the presentation of his video. He's not trying to use that to show me what this drama scene should be. And so you have to keep in your mind that, okay, what kind of a lighting scene is this? I think that right there alone is something that took me forever to see, because I'm one of those people that when I'm watching a video, I'm trying to mimic everything. But when that guy is talking, he's not so much as talking about, or when that YouTube video, instructional video, whatever you want to call it, when they're actually doing these videos, that scene that they're in may not be the scene that they're describing how to do. That's just part of their own video presentation. So I did this one just as something really quick to say, I'm going to put this video up and then go, because I've waited too long and it's taking me longer than what it should have for me to even put this video out, because in my mind it needs to be something specific. But no, it doesn't. It just needs to be able to be transferable from me to you, and that's what it needs to be. So again, you can do creative lighting setup and you can do a natural cinematic filmic type setup, or you can do a setup for individual shots, which is where you get into it for your photography. So one of the things you want to be able to do, and like I said, use that cell phone to work on the beginning stages of learning and understanding your exposure settings. Get an app like the Blackmagic app that will allow you to control your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO, so that you can be able to see exactly what making those changes for each one will do. I've got a real quick shortcut for you. Your ISO will control the actual ambient lighting exposure for your scene. The shutter speed is going to allow you to quickly add contrast or take it away, but you want to have that twice as fast as whatever your actual frame rate is. Okay, so your shutter speed needs to be twice the actual frame rate. So if you're shooting at 24 frames a second, you want to make your shutter speed at 50. If you're shooting at 60 frames a second, you want to make your shutter speed at 120, or about as close as your camera will allow you to get. But that's going to quickly allow you to be able to add contrast or decontrast your scene as well in terms of your exposure. So if you're doing photography, then you can use that to your advantage. But if you're doing video, you still have some more things to do. Your ISO is going to digitally impact your scene, because that's your camera sensitivity to light. You can make it either desensitive, or you can desensitize it, or you can make it super sensitive. The lower your ISO is, the crisper your image is going to be, because you're going to be removing a lot of the digital lighting from that scene. So now, when you are going to be bringing in lights like a key light, once you've gotten your environment set up and you have the background of your subject at the exposure that you want, bam, flip on that key light. Once you flip on that key light, now your subject is exposed. Then you can begin to see how much you want your subject to be illuminated within your scene. And my rule is, hey, when I'm looking at it, if my key light is mixing and blending in with my background light, then that's a problem for me. And so I'm going to begin to make the adjustments. Either I'm going to turn it up some on my key light, or I'm going to begin to reduce the exposure on my background. And I can do all of that by just turning on one light at a time. I can turn on the backlight, I can turn on the lights that I have that are creating my ambient, or I can increase my exposure in the camera naturally without using my camera light to be able to get the look and feel that I want. And for this particular video, this is what I have. So I've got a little blue light. It's just a little handheld light, and you can get those pretty cheaply. Because I wanted to light the space, and then I wanted to light myself. So now I've got a little handheld pan light over here, and I've got a little handheld pan light over there in the background, and I've got another little light right behind my head to be able to give you a little backlight so you can kind of see here. And then I have a key light right here. So if I turn this key light off, that shows you what my actual background lighting looks like. And so I want to make sure that I stood out from the background. So my key light is going to be lighter than what my actual background exposure setting is. And that's how we get that look. And again, this is just a creative look. It just needs to be what I need for it to be, so that you can see me while I give you this information. So now, there are several different types of lights that you can go out and purchase. You can go and get a panel light. You can go and get an LED tube. You can go and get some handheld lights. You can even just use light bulbs. You can use shop lights. You can also go out and get some of your more expensive lights. Some of these lights, they can cost you a couple of $1,000s, but you can get some that can cost you a couple of $100s or less. I'm gonna say the brand doesn't really matter, but that's, you have to kind of try that out for yourself. I'm not really a brand whore, but I do like good quality lights. So now, you want to get a light that does allow you to be able to change the color temperature of the light, so that way when you begin to try to match color temperatures with the outside environment for your inside environment, or just matching the color temperature of a lamp or something like that in your scene, because you've gone that extra mile, then you want to have a light that is bicolor. If you get a daylight, if you get just a daylight light fixture, it's going to be stuck at that one temperature. You won't be able to control it, and so you'll have to do other things to be able to match color temperatures. But if you get a bicolor light, then you'll be able to either have daylight, or you'll be able to have tungsten light setting. And so if I wanted to put a candle right here and make you feel like that candle was the thing that was illuminating my face, I would have the candle right here in the actual camera frame, but then I'd have this other light that's a little further out that's not in the camera frame, and I'm going to match the color temperature of that candle and put that on my face. That way the lighting wouldn't be mixed up and it wouldn't be confusing, because it would appear as if this candle is actually lighting my face, but that wouldn't be the actual case, because the candle's not going to be strong enough to actually give me proper exposure alone. But the mind and the brain are gonna trick you into believing that that's what the case is, if you have a light that is strong enough and powerful enough to be able to do that. I'm gonna say, starting off, man, grab you some CTO gels, grab you some CTB gels. CTO is color temperature orange, CTB is color temperature blue. This will allow you to take lights that aren't natively one color temperature and adjust those color temperatures. So those would be color gels. You can buy them cheaply off Amazon. I'll put a link in the description for those as well, so that you can be able to see just how to be able to do that. There's a lot of different things that you can do before you begin to spend a lot of big money. And if you don't have projects or work that's already coming in that'll help you to afford those, then it just becomes a personal decision. Either you're going to spend that money now and get some of those things and take the chance that you just know how to do it, or you're going to spend the money later and you'll benefit from it because you just have it. But what I'll say is this: when I first started, there was a lot of different products that I purchased on my own, including cameras, that I can say now I just really wasn't ready for. I don't care how many videos you watch, most of the time you're just mimicking. It takes a while to get the understanding, and that's just how it is. That's the reality of it. It does take a little while in order for you to really begin to get to understand how not only these things are used, but the application of them when actually using them. That comes from reps after reps after reps after reps. There's no real shortcut in this process, regardless of what somebody tells you, that if you buy this particular thing, that you'll get this particular look. I don't care who it is or how easy they say it is. You might get it that one time in that one scenario, but what happens when the environment is completely different and you're on the clock and somebody's paying you? Then you're in a bad spot. So that being said, that's going to take me to my last and final thing as far as gear and the progression of it for this particular video. This is going to be the camera. I'm going to say, in your camera search for now, get you a camera that can shoot in at least 4K, because if it shoots in 4K, then there will be an option for you to also shoot in 1080p. And if your camera can shoot 4K at 60 frames a second, that'll be a huge bonus. Not required, but it'll be a huge bonus. The other thing I'm going to say, and this is just to make sure that in a year or two, when you begin to really dive into some other things about the filmmaking process, that you'll have that ability, and you won't be in a position where you say, man, I don't have that, so I got to go buy a new camera. Is get you a camera that is also a 10-bit camera. There's a lot of stuff that you may not even have been told or would even understand right now that is surrounded by having a 10-bit camera. But when you see things like log, when you see things like color grading, when you see some of these videos, if your camera doesn't shoot in 10-bit, that basically just means that your camera doesn't have enough of the information that really will allow you to take advantage of those. And so how do I know that? Because I've had like 3 8-bit cameras, because I was sold. Just the not knowing part will get you. Not so much now, because I know better, but that's one of the reasons why I want to make sure that you have this information. So I'm going to make it real simple. Notice I didn't say one name brand, but I'm going to say 10-bit, minimum of 4K, and if you can be able to get 4K at 60 frames a second, even better. Not a requirement, but it would definitely help. And I think most cameras that shoot in 10-bit and have 4K capability, that those cameras will allow you to be able to shoot. Now, with the way the cameras are now, see, 5 years ago, that wasn't the case. You can go buy a camera that'll shoot up to 240 frames a second, and it still wouldn't shoot as high as 4K 24 frames a second. But then you're just working with a 1080 image that is, it's just a high def image as opposed to an image. And what that'll do is that allows you to be able to push in, pull out without losing your image quality. But if your camera isn't a 4K 60 frames a second camera or 4K 120 frames per second camera, then yeah, you can shoot at the higher frame rates, but if you want to punch in or zoom in, you begin to lose image quality. That's pretty much what it means. So if you can at least do 4K 60 frames a second, you'll be able to shoot in slow motion and be able to do some things in the editing process when it comes to making fancy edits and things like that. It's not a requirement, it's not necessary. If you're just looking at doing, dramatic film, dramatic type film or drama films or, documentary content, you might not even want that. So, because you just want to make sure you can shoot at 24 frames a second. That's really all I have to say about the cameras. You can make sure that it's Bluetooth, make sure that it can work in a Wi-Fi environment. That way you can be able to have different connectivities and be able to connect it up to your computers and stuff without having to go through a whole lot of extra or purchase extra things to do it. You got your capture cards, you got your HDMI, you're good to go. As far as learning, find a reputable online 24-hour access lifetime membership training class. Something that's structured. It doesn't have to be the biggest, doesn't have to be the most popular, but you do want to have something where you can go and look at other students who have actually taken those courses, that they've learned something in a structured format. Because now you have a formal way to be able to practice. And I'll tell you now, being someone who's purchased several of those online courses, none of them are going to hit 100% of what you need in one single course. But what it will do is it'll give you enough of the foundational information components for learning how to do this that you'll begin to piece some things together as you practice. But none of them are going to take you from 0 to 10, 100% and give you a full-fledged education. That's just not what's going to happen. But again, through practice and combining those with other learning resources, that will make you have several aha moments along the way. I'm still figuring out things right now that makes me say, God dog it, that's what it is. And I'll put a link in the description for the ones that I've done. And I'll also let you know which ones that, for me, were able to help me to go from one level of understanding to another level of understanding. And believe me, that's what's going to happen to you at this stage of the game for many years from now. You're just going to keep on leveling up. And when you put it all together, oh, it's a beautiful thing. Because you'll begin to have that confidence that when you walk into any situation, that there won't be anything you can't do. When someone has a problem, you'll be able to take your camera and your gear and you'll be able to become a solution for that problem. And that's when the profit comes. So look, hopefully this video has brought some added value to you and your content creation, no matter what area that you go into, whether that be filmmaking, whether that be content creation, whether that be photography. These are the things that you're going to need in order for you to be able to get to the next level from a technical perspective. Now, there are some other things and some other videos that I will be making, but if you have any questions at all, drop them below in the comments. Let me know what you feel like may not have been discussed, or something that you feel like, hey, you covered some things, but here's some gray areas that JT that you missed. Put those things in the comments below, and I promise you that I will see them and I will address them. I'm not hard to find. If you look in my about section, you can get to any one of my social media channels. You can contact me through email. Let's grow together. I mean, there's been a community of people that I've leaned on throughout my entire process. And, from gear to money, there's a discussion to be had, because there's levels that you have to go through. So let's shortcut that process for you. Hit the subscribe button if you would like to see more content. Be sure to follow me, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and when the next video comes out, you'll be notified. We'll see you in the next video.